Item 17, recommendation from the Civil Defence and Emergency Management Committee prioritised plan of actions. To note the report setting out a prioritised plan and note the implementation will be made regularly. Okay. Do you want to move that?
I'm happy to. I've got a question.
No questions. Right, I've got Phil who's going to address us on this one, please, Philip.
Thank you, Your Worship. I was going for the all-time record. I put this on the agenda earlier because I thought the work program in follow-up to the Bush review should be visible on your agenda, socialised with all of the councillors, in addition to the Civil Defence Committee meeting, which of course was wedged in between workshops yesterday, and hence most councillors were there. So I'm predicting that there probably isn't much need to go into detail with it, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Your Worship, I've just got one question.
Please.
Well, one question is, congratulations, I think this is fantastic, and I absolutely am not on the Civil Defence Committee, so I'm very keen to have those progress reports. But I'm just looking at B and it says will be made regularly, and I just wondered whether that should be a set time frame, like quarterly. I would hate to go for a long period of time with no update, and I know regularly could be many things. What is your suggestion to give me confidence that this will come through more regularly than just the regularly?
My suggestion is that we follow the way the work program is set out. We've got some 1 month deliveries. I would suggest we come back in a month's time with a progress report, but then we're talking 3, 6 and 9 months. So if we did that next month, then in 3 months, or 2 further months beyond that, and then at 3 monthly intervals.
Okay, so note that the implementation progress will be made regularly as per the work program to the governing body.
Perfect.
Would you be happy, Councillor Stewart and Councillor Leone, to do that?
Well, they're not here, but I'm sure they would.
Yeah. Yes, we would.
And I note that Mr. Matt has to report back after 6 months to show that he's made sufficient progress in order to keep his job. So there's plenty of encouragement here. So, Councillor Watson.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Just a question on the Martin Jenkins report, which we're noting here. In the section under leadership and governance, it refers to the GM EM position, and including 3 new roles approved for the new financial year. So that, I'm assuming that's a recommendation in the first instance. So I just wanted to know, and it's a question that's come up before, how many people do we have in Auckland Emergency Management as it stands? How many staff that are in that division?
I'll get Paul to nod, but my understanding is 32 positions, most but not all of them filled. The 3 positions that we're talking about there are ones that we've agreed as a priority to be additional resources. We've looked after the costs of those from within existing budgets by reprioritising, and we want to move on those basically immediately. There is the possibility of some additional roles beyond that, particularly to support things like a level of local response planning. Clearly that's going to be resource intensive. We are more generally prioritising some money that's been provisionally allowed for in the budget for next year. If that proves inadequate to do everything that we need to do in the work program, then I'm afraid I will need to come back to you, but at this stage that's what we're planning to do.
So just a quick follow-up on that extra resources in terms of local response planning. So that would be a person or persons who took up the challenge of enabling local communities more, which has been a pretty strong thread through the post-flood analysis in terms of what used to be there in the Legacy Council. So that's the specific role that person would be there to enable that type of local presence?
Correct. I don't think it's realistic for one person to do the whole region. We're looking at the local board structure as the basis for that, with the probability that in Franklin and Rodney, where we've got disparate geographically spread communities, we're probably going to have to do some further, more granular local planning.
The experience was that that further local granular planning was best centred around the local fire chiefs, and so I'm hoping you're going to bring that into. That's how it's done in other rural communities. The fire chiefs integrated into that plan, and we should do that. Councillor Walker.
On Phil's point about local boards, if we go back to the structures that used to operate under the legacy councils, they were legacy council based. So you had the North Shore, you had Manukau and the like. Often local board boundaries are quite arbitrary, and increasingly I think the concept of clusters is relevant. So I just put that to you. Things need to be fit for purpose, and when it comes to a storm event, it's catchments and larger units that are more relevant than local boards, frankly, so I just toss that in. I think we need to operate on what is fit for purpose, what works in terms of an emergency, because you can have a lot of dramas across 21 local boards engaging across something, or things based on that model. So I just put that to you.
Look, it's a very valid point. We're going to have to construct this in a way that makes the most sense in terms of that planning. It may well be that some aspects should be handled on a cluster basis. Conversely, there'll be situations that probably the local board structures do suit.
Okay, Councillor Darby, and then I'm going to put.
Yep. Look, one of the things that intrigues me, and I've raised this with you, Phil, but you didn't seem to have any knowledge of it, is this Office of the Auditor General's report into the disaster preparedness of Auckland, focusing on vulnerable communities. That was pretty much the scope of it. It was from 2019. It still hasn't been finalised, and I can't see it on the forward work program or the historical work program for the Civil Defence and Emergency Management Committee. It's like it doesn't exist within Council, yet somebody in Council has been working with the Office of the Auditor General on something that seems really relevant, in fact, extremely relevant. The Mike Bush report tried to find it, but couldn't, because you can't oblige the Office of the Auditor General to reveal information. I've tried to do an official information search on it, but the Official Information Act doesn't apply to the OAG, which is understandable. So, I mean, this seems extremely relevant considering what we've just gone through when the OAG was undertaking a review of our disaster preparedness, and it's in the ether now. It's like it's invisible. What is going on?
Look, to be honest, I share the same level of frustration, to be honest. It feels something like death by a thousand cuts at the moment. And frankly, I would rather have had all of those inputs available as the basis for this planning. It hasn't been possible. Where is it up to? You're right. Just for other councillors' benefit, they did their first work around this audit in 2019. It was shelved for a very extended period of time over COVID. Their decision, nothing to do with us. They realised last year in wanting to revisit it that their field work and their intel about what shape the function was in was wholly out of date, so they needed to redo all of that work. I have been told that they've now finished all of their work, and the receipt of a further draft report for our comment is imminent, which I would like to conclude by fast turnaround at our end so that we can receive the final report. I made the point at the Civil Defence Committee that there will be a number of reasons why we need to treat this work program as a bit of a live document and be prepared to update it. The receipt of that Auditor General report's one of those reasons. It may be that we have cause to revisit some of the priorities in there, add to it, replace some others. So all I can say is we're waiting for it and expecting it shortly.
Okay, Mayor, I feel like we should keep an eye on that report, and maybe it comes to your chairing of the governing body rather than the CDM, because I don't know, it might have to be elevated, considering, what we've gone through, and who knows, we might find that, well, if we had have known that information prior to, the Friday, could have been different.
Okay, well, I'll take that in, but I think perhaps Phil and you or Matt, could you perhaps dig that out and have a look and see what's in it there that might be important for us to know? But thanks for raising that. I'm going to put that, do we note this and note the implementation? All those in favour, please say aye. To the contrary, carried. Now, we still haven't even got to the confidential bit, which is going to take a bit of catching through. The next ones, I believe, are just summary of decisions. 18, 19 and 20, can they go as an omnibus, please? Okay, all those in favour of 18, 19 and 20? Carried. There's no further extraordinary business, so I'm going to move that we go into secrecy. Who was that? Me and the Deputy Mayor. All those in favour? Whisper, it's a secret. Whisper. We want the organisers requesting a wee bit of a break while they just assemble the secret information.
Thank you. Those of you online, could you please now reconnect to the confidential teams?